Hey everybody, welcome to another how-to video, Carroll Restorations. Today we're going to be going over dovetailing and making drawer boxes the right way. Stay tuned to learn a bunch more and how we get it done over here at Carroll Restorations from start to finish. So to start, you always want to make sure that your tools are fine-tuned and performing at the peak of their ability, I guess you can say. So this is our quarter cable Omnijig. It's a dovetailing jig. It's a fantastic machine, but like anything else, it's gets used and abused and worn out. And so what I like to do when I have a lot of drawer boxes that I gotta do in a day, I'll typically take this thing out and I'll just use a really fine scuff pad or even an orbital with like 500 plus grit paper, and I'll just go ahead and I'll take it and I'll just clean up this top right here where the router plate is going to be riding against. Get any kind of gunk, any kind of residue off of there. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to take some, we like to use this for all of our stuff because it's cheap, it's always readily available, and it works great. Some of this paste wax here. You can see our ancient rag. Reuse your rags, folks. And I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm just gonna put a nice coating on this, almost like you're waxing a car. Get it all up in there, nice and even. I'm gonna take a dry rag. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax off. You can see a lot of the residue coming right off, filling the pores of the metal, making it nice and slick and smooth, so that way when we go ahead and start actually dovetailing, it's not sticky. Alright, so once that machine's all prepped and ready to go for us, we're going to go ahead and come over here to our drawer stock. Now, in this particular case, we had a couple of drawers that were pretty tall, and we didn't have material that was tall enough, and we were trying to use up what we have, so we just went ahead and glued up a couple boards so we can get our our height for these specific drawers. And so now what we got to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to chisel off this glue line right here and get it pretty flat, and then we're going to go grab our orbital sander and we're going to sand both sides of all of these pieces of wood right here. And we're going to do that before we cut it and dovetail it, because if you do it afterwards, like if you dovetail one of these and then you sand it afterwards, it's going to change the depth of the pins and everything in the dovetail, and it's going to make it so it doesn't fit properly. So if you're going to do any kind of surfacing like this on your drawer stock, you want to do it before you dovetail anything. So I'm just going to go in here like this. I'm just going to get the bulk of it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Basically just want to get it as good as you can, so that way you're not gunking up your sanding pads as you go ahead and sand it. So I'll go ahead and do that on all of these, and then once that's done, I'll bring you guys over to the table saw and we'll go ahead and get all of these cut to the proper sizes, and then from there we'll start dovetailing. Alright, so a little tip before you go ahead and get too crazy making your drawers. This might not be applicable to everybody, but us being a cabinet and a furniture shop, when we do drawers, a lot of times it's like 50 drawers. And if you do the math, that's 4 pieces of wood per drawer that you're working with, so it can get very confusing very fast. And if you screw it up where you mix up 2 boards that aren't supposed to be together, you have to start all over pretty much. So what we like to really try to do all the time is keep everything very organized. So the way I've got it set up right here, this is one drawer. This is all the components to make the one drawer. And what I like to do is, instead of writing things on the face because it's going to get sanded, go ahead and I'll stack everything up like that. And I know my side lengths for every single one because they're all the same for this specific cabinet. They're all 21 inches deep. So they're going to be 20 3/4 because we have to subtract 3/4 of an inch for the dovetails. And I'll go over that formula when we get to cutting stuff. But anyways, I'll take my 4 components per drawer, I'll get it in a pile, make a line down the side so I know so I have a constant when I'm working on these things, and I'll label them. There are the 2 sides, and there are the 2 fronts and the backs right there. Bam. That's one set. It's one drawer. And I'll do that with all of these. It's all labeled on the side right there. Same deal. So that way, when you have an entire 4-foot by 8-foot table full of drawer parts, you can, all you have to do is turn everything to the side and you know what you got. That's one drawer, you can't mess it up. And if you're confused, you can always just refer back to it and match things up accordingly. So I just wanted to stress that before we get anything else, because that's like, it's very important. And when you get moving and you're flowing and going fast, it's really easy to overlook something like that briefly and make a big mistake. So just my little tip, my little advice to everybody, if you're doing a lot of drawers and stuff, just go ahead and stay organized to the best of your abilities, because it'll make your life so much easier in the long run. Now I have to get to the sanding portion, so I'm going to be doing this for a good little bit. I'm just going to go over these ones that don't have any glue edge. I'm just going to hit those real quick with 150 on the orbital right there, and that's just going to clean them up, get them to a good finish grit, so they'll be good for spraying when I'm all said and done. And these ones over here that have the glue joint, I'm going to hit those with 120 first. So I'm a little bit coarser just to get all that glue off of there. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit it with the 150 afterwards, so it's all the same. So when we go ahead and spray our clear on it, everything's uniform, it's holding the same way, and it'll be nice and pretty and consistent. So, I don't know who did this, but somebody did it. Now, when you're gluing, you either want to clean the glue that you applied, the squeeze out, with a wet rag and then dry it quick, make it very clean. Or you don't wipe it at all, you let it bead up, and then it's much easier to chisel off when it's all dry. This, when you wipe it, is near impossible to chisel off traditionally. So I don't know who did it. I was on site working somewhere else, so it wasn't me, but somebody did it. And I'm gonna show you how to do it, clean it up easily. So instead of traditionally going at it like that works a little bit, but it has a tendency to pull up on the grain, and then it really will, you know, you can cause some problems getting chunks of wood pulling out. So a good way to do it is you take your chisel and grab it close to the base like that, and instead of going against it, you know, pushing it, you're gonna pull and scrape right on that seam. And you kind of feather it out a little bit so there's not a big step there. The reason this stuff is hard to sand is because this glue, it's a lot harder than the wood. It's denser. And so if you have a big wide strip of thin glue right there and you just try to orbital it without taking the bulk of it off, you're pretty much, you can get through it, but it's gonna take longer, and you run the risk of kind of rounding over that spot and sanding more of the wood down here, which would create like a hill and a valley. And you don't want that. Just a little tip for cleaning up those fine glue lines that are a pain to sand. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut all of my drawer parts to the proper lengths. These drawers have to be 21 inches deep, and the way we have our dovetails set up, this would be a side and that would be a front or a back. And that distance right there is 3/8 of an inch. So if we want a 21-inch drawer, we have to cut our sides 3/8 on each end short, which is 3/4. So 21 inches minus 3/4, 20 1/4. So we're gonna go ahead and we got our saw set up at 20 1/4. We're gonna cut every single side at that length. And then the fronts and the backs are basically gonna be the width of the drawer opening minus 1/8 of an inch, or on these ones maybe even a little bit less, because they're just friction fit drawers. And so there's no slides or anything, so we're gonna have it, the whole box very tight to the inside. So once I go ahead and get all these cut, then they'll be ready for the dovetailing, and we'll go over there and show you how that's done. Alrighty, so we're over at the Dovetailer. It's the machine that we cleaned up earlier and prepped for right now. Got all of our boards sanded, got them all cut, everything is ready to go. Got it nice and organized. I've got all my fronts and backs on the right hand side, and I got all my sides on the left hand side. Over here, this is pretty important. When using this machine, which this is probably applicable for most dovetailing machines, but you want to take the boards and you got to find the cup, okay? And you want the cup facing down. You don't want it this way because then your edges are going to want to be pulling apart, and if anything is going to be pulling apart, you want it to be the middle because that'll get sucked in with the dovetails. So you want to find your cup, and then we have a mark that I made on the side, and that is going to be on the outside of this. Every single board has a mark on the side, and we want the side marks to be on the outside. And then when we're working on this, you'll have your tops, like front and backs go on the top and the sides go on the bottom. And the reason we have that line there is so when you change these out to do the other sides, you want to spin it like this and do the same with the bottom. And then the outside mark will be on the outside again. And you have to do it that way, otherwise the dovetails will not line up and your drawer box will not work at all. And it also works for when you're making your groove for your bottom. That way you have a mark on that side right there, that's the bottom. So you can make your groove on the bottom and everything's the same and it's consistent and works very good. So got to keep that in mind. So I got my cup. This is going to be facing down. I'll put my front in. And I'll get it just about flush with this plate right here. Not all the way there, but just about. And then I'll go ahead and I'll grab a side. Remember, mark has to be on the outside. Find my cup. So the cup is going like this on this board. So I'm going to flip it because I want that cup against the fence right there. So this will slide up into here like that, and then I'll push down on this. I'll push this kind of tight. All right, I like where this is at. I'm gonna go ahead and lock it. That's good. And then I can come over here and finish up the top. I want to get it nice and flush. Nice and flush in there. Okay, like that. All right, now that's a little bit too loose, so what I got to do is I got to push this down, and I got to tighten that bolt up just a little bit. And come over here and do the same thing. Just a couple turns. Get that clamping bar nice and tight. There we go. Now, that's not going anywhere. That's not going anywhere. So that's how you got to set it up. I'll go ahead and dovetail this one side, and then we'll go ahead and switch it over. I'll show you how I do that, and we'll finish it off. Now this is what we're using. This is what we use for all of them. It's already set up. It's got that riding bearing thing there, the sleeve. I don't even know what you actually call it, but it's used to ride on the inside of this little template right here, the guides. And this is set up for 5/8 inch thick material, and the setup on this and this will change depending on the thickness of your material. We pretty much only use 5/8 for drawers, so this doesn't ever change. But if you're using a different thickness, you have to adjust accordingly, and that's all dependent on how you want your dovetails. So when you start on these, what we like to do is, instead of just plunging right in, we're gonna go ahead and back cut all of this right here, so that way if there's any kind of chip out or it tries to chip out, you won't ever see it. We'll have a nice clean edge right there. And then we'll go ahead and get the rest of them all done. Just like that. So, what we're gonna do now, we're gonna take our top, we're gonna keep it just like that, and we're just gonna spin it. Bring it over to this side. So we're gonna do the same thing here. Gonna get it just about flush. We're gonna go ahead and unlock our bottom. Same deal, right down, spin. Do not flip, just spin. And if you can get a good angle with the camera, you can see the cup I was talking about. Tight at the ends. I got my little gap in the middle. You don't want the gap on the outsides. If there is a gap, you want it in the middle. Get that all plumb. Push down on this. Lock it down. Get that all tight. All tight, like that. That's good. That's nice and flush right there. That's what you want. You don't want to have a big lip right there. That'll screw up your dovetails. Nice and flush. This side is good to go. See how we did. So those will go right in there like that. If you did it correctly. Just like that. Got just a little bit proud. And that's exactly what we want, because we can sand that right off and make it perfectly square and straight and flush. But you see it's nice and tight. Just enough space in there to get some glue. Get a little squeeze out, and that sucker will last a long time. So we'll go ahead and get all these dovetailed, and when I get done with that, we'll bring it over to the table saw and we'll get all of our grooves for our bottoms. We'll show you how to do that. And once that's done, we're pretty much ready to cut our bottoms to size, get everything assembled, do our final trim, and then do our final sanding. And then they'll be ready to hit the spray booth and get finished. We'll see you at the saw. All right, so we're all done dovetailing, and now I'm getting set up to run my grooves and all of my drawer pieces for the bottoms that are gonna go inside. So this is where that line that I told you about earlier in the video comes in handy. So I know, because I've done this a million times and I was taught this way, that this line is the bottom of every single drawer. That's how our dovetailer is set up. So I can trust that. So I've got my line set up going against the fence, and that way I can run every single board through here at, and only set the fence up one time. So what we typically do is we leave about a 1/2 inch right there, because a lot of times we're using bloom slides and they require a 1/2 inch space from the very bottom of the drawer box to the bottom of the drawer. So there'll be a 1/2 inch right there. I'll make my first cut, and then I'll move my fence a little bit to make it about 3/16 wide. And I'll do them all one more time, and then the grooving will be all done. So that line is very important so I don't get my parts screwed up, And so when I come over here, I can use it to be more efficient with everything because I can, the repeatability saves a ton of time. So they're all set up exactly the way they need to be set up. Oh, pro tip. Make sure that you don't groove the wrong side. This is the inside. Okay. This is the inside. That is the inside. So those are all right there, ready to go. I've got my fence, if you want to come over here and look at that, set up at just a whisker past ½ an inch, which is hard to see because of the glare, but it's just barely heavy. I got my power feeder all set up. I'm gonna go ahead and raise my blade just a little bit to start. Just as deep into the part as that tail is right there. That is about a heavy quarter, 5/16 maybe. But I'm gonna start light and work my way up until it's perfect. That's the line, goes against the fence. So I'm almost there. I gotta come up just a little bit. And that's perfect. It's just barely under depth, but that's perfect. I can run a chisel in there and just real fast clean it up, and that'll be perfect for my space balls and then my drawer bottoms. So now I'll go ahead and I'll run every single one of these through at one time. I'll move my fence a little more, and I'll run them all again one more time and widen that groove up. And then I'll cut my bottoms, and then it's time to glue everything up, and then sand them, and we're done. Or almost done. So we got done grooving all of our drawer parts, and I went ahead and I just cut one of these bottoms so we can get a good clip of me assembling it, and I can walk you through how I did it. So a lot of this stuff is based directly off of material thickness, and all of the formulas that we're using right now, those can vary depending on the material you're using. Like I said earlier in the video, we use 5/8 material, maple, almost always for our drawers, so we can pretty much just use the same formulas. So that's what all of the stuff that I am referring to today is based off of. So if you have something different, you're gonna have to refigure exactly what you need as far as sizes go, because it's gonna change. This is my drawer bottom for one of the drawers. I'm using 1/4 inch MDO core maple veneered plywood. It's really nice stuff, and it's almost exactly 1/4 inch. It's like a 32nd under, which is nice. It gives us a little wiggle room because I make my groove a 1/4 inch. So this is how I get my formula for this. So I'll bring you over here just so you can kind of look at this. This is just a little thing we keep in the shop, just as a reference. So for the width of the drawer bottom, we need to subtract 3/4 of an inch from the width of the drawer front and back. So this is my front and back, right there. That's my finished width. You know, I'm gonna sand it a little bit, so that'll give me a little more wiggle room when everything is said and done. But that's a front or a back. To get my width of this drawer bottom, I'm gonna go ahead and take this measurement and I'm gonna subtract 3/4 of an inch, and that's gonna give me exactly what I need for my drawer bottom width. It's pretty similar for the length or depth. So for the length of the drawer bottom or depth, subtract 1/16 inch from drawer side length. So this is my drawer side. Now this can get a little confusing because the drawer sides aren't the same as the opening or the depth of the cabinet. If I have a 21-inch drawer, which is what this is, my drawer side isn't going to be 21 inches deep. It's going to be 20 1/4 inches deep. And that is because the dovetails is 3/8. It bumps the whole thing out 3/8 of an inch on this side and 3/8 of an inch on this side, which makes 3/4 of an inch. So that's where the difference is. So this is 20 1/4, and I'm going to subtract 1/16 from that measurement. So it's going to be 20 3/16 for my drawer bottom depth. And that will give me the perfect size. I'll have just a tiny bit of wiggle room for movement, but it's tight enough to where it will help square the drawer up and it won't move or rattle or anything. Which it won't anyways because we staple everything down. So that's how we get our formulas, and that's what we're using right here. So I'll go ahead and I'll just show you how I assemble everything. Over here I've got 3/8 inch crown stapler. I'm using 3/8 inch crown staples, 1/2 inch long. Pretty much use that for all of our drawers. You're going to want a little handy framing square. You can use a bigger one if you have a big enough drawer, but this pretty much is what I use for all of them. And earlier I want to kind of redact something from a previous clip in this video. I had mentioned briefly, I think, that I'm using Spaceballs. We don't use Spaceballs on our drawers. I was just talking fast and got a little sidetracked, I guess, but this is what a Spaceball is. It's just a little squishy rubber ball, and it's used for spacing, hence the name. And we use these in door panels, and you know, if we're doing like a big build out or something like that, or something that has big panels, that's when we use these, because you want to have a lot more play in a real big panel like that. These, though, they do not require Spaceballs, and you really shouldn't use them because you want these to be pretty tight inside of here. The way I like to do this, I'll get my front and my back lined up just like that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my little glue bottle right here. I'm using Type Bond 2. You can use whatever you want. We just use this because it's a little bit better than Type Bond 1, but it's, you know, less expensive than Type Bond 3. And these are never going to see water, so you don't really need Type Bond 3, something that's totally waterproof. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put a healthy dab in each one of those. And then I'll go ahead and I'll take one of my sides, and I'm just gonna put a little tiny bit right there. Not a lot, just a dab. Like so. And then I'll go ahead and I'll put this one in. And I'll just fit it in just like that right there. Come over to the outside. Just make sure that that is nice and flush. Trying to clean up some of this glue as best I can. I really should have like a wet rag here right now, but I don't. It's okay, I'll suffer through the sanding of this one later. You're just gonna have to work it kind of with your hands, wiggle it back and forth, get it in there. And if you need, you can get a block of wood and a hammer and give it some persuasion. All right, so that's pretty good right there. I like that. Now, I'm gonna grab this drawer bottom that I made. I'm gonna pick the good side. That is the good side. That is the bad side. Go ahead and I'm going to slide this right in my grooves here. And if you made your cuts right, it should fit perfectly. Give you about a 32nd to maybe a 1/16 of wiggle room, but we want a little tighter than a 1/16. This one is just a hair short on the depth, but it's going to be fine. I'm just going to put just a tiny bit there. And we're going to real quick, you're going to come over here, you're going to get one started. And you're going to come over here, you're going to get this one started. Now this part you do have to be kind of fast with, because if you're not, you're going to get glue dripping all in the inside of your drawer box, which you don't want. I'll go ahead and I'll take a little quick clamp like this. Oh, this one's not long enough. Just like so. And then you can take these, pop them together, and real fast. If you don't have a long clamp on you, now you do. So I'll go ahead and I'll just, on the bottom, I'll squeeze it until it's nice and flush. I like it. That's pretty darn good. Come over here and I'll do the same thing. It's pretty darn good. I want to go ahead and just check out that right there. It's just a whisker heavy, like a 64th. So that'll be totally fine. We can hard block or orbital that off and it'll be perfect. I'll push this down so that way the seam on the inside of the drawer is tight. Go ahead, put that right in there, angle it, push down, staple it. Do the same thing over here. You don't need tons of staples, but you also don't want this thing rattling. So you never know what people are going to put in these drawers. All right, so now it's all stapled, it's all glued. We like all of our dovetail edges right there. So this one's good to go. We're gonna let this thing dry for maybe an hour or two while I'm working on all the other ones. And when that's all done, when they're all assembled and built and we like them, we're gonna go ahead and do our finished sanding. We're gonna round over these edges and make them all pretty, and then we're gonna pass them over to Tim, our finishing guy. He'll go ahead and put some crystal on them and they'll be ready to go.